As that man who is the Republican candidate continues to distance himself from Project 2025, director of the project, Paul Dans, who used to be a top advisor to you-know-who, has stepped down. His campaign, you-know-who's campaign, keeps saying he doesn't know anything about it. Nothing. He never saw it before, never heard of it. But his VP, JD, wrote the foreword of the book written by Heritage Foundation president Kevin Roberts, who co-authored Project 2025. See how funny that is?
People seem to be surprised that the first felon that we ever elected to the White House commits crimes, but, or breaks the law.
Right, breaks the law.
But clearly, he has no respect for the law whatsoever. And so, for the most part, it seems like they've been going after probationary people because probationary employees do not enjoy the same protections.
They lack some protections.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, it'll be interesting to see where the unions go with some of these lawsuits and how successful they are. But again, ultimately, I think that he's trying to get to his favorite court.
Rep. Jasmine Crockett and Whoopi Goldberg engaged in a compelling exchange on The View, where the congresswoman passionately defended her stance on the state of American democracy and the actions of the current administration. As Goldberg, known for her direct and probing questions, challenged Crockett on the effectiveness of democratic strategies and messaging, the discussion quickly became a sharp and thought-provoking debate. Crockett, never one to shy away from confrontation, pushed back against criticisms, emphasizing the urgency of the political moment and the consequences of inaction. Their conversation underscored the ongoing struggle between holding political figures accountable and rallying a unified opposition to policies that threaten fundamental rights. Let's wait and see what they said.
Back to them. A lot of them don't do that.
Absolutely. It's a must in this environment, though, right? Because they will steamroll right over you. And unfortunately, we see that ever since day one, baby, that pen been going and it ain't stopped. And it's steamrolling over all of our rights and our liberties and our freedoms and everything that we thought was the foundation of this country, our Constitution. Seems like we're saying, well, nope. With a pen, get rid of the Constitution. With a pen, get rid of impoundment and other laws that exist.
Do you think that Americans just didn't believe that he would go with that Project 2025? Or what? What was that? I mean, he said, I don't even know what it is. Remember?
Oh, I remember, honey.
Yeah.
I remember there was actually a hearing that we had in oversight, and it was right after he said, oh, I know nothing about that Project 2025.
Oh, yeah.
And we had a witness, and I mentioned that his name was mentioned 312 times.
Yes.
In Project 2025.
Yes.
So I was like, this is interesting. He don't know nothing about it, but he's all through it.
And if it's his name, he's riveted to it.
No. And he's relying on the people that absolutely pulled it together.
Like JD Vance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. I mean, I think that there are those that just said, I want to do something different. And so we know that typically when people are feeling it, especially in the economy, they tend to just go the other way.
Why?
The problem is that this wasn't the guy to fix anything. This is the guy that is the king of breaking things, as we can see.
Rep. Jasmine Crockett delivers a sharp critique of Republican leadership, arguing that it actively undermines constitutional rights and democratic norms through executive actions and policy decisions. She describes the administration's approach as steamrolling over fundamental liberties, warning that these efforts weaken the nation's legal and institutional framework. A key concern she raises is the increasing use of executive power to dismantle existing laws, sidestepping legislative oversight and eroding checks and balances. Additionally, she expresses alarm over the role of the Supreme Court in legitimizing controversial policies, suggesting that judicial decisions are being leveraged to provide legal cover for actions that may be unconstitutional. Crockett teased these concerns to tangible consequences for everyday Americans, warning that public services, economic stability, and essential rights could deteriorate under current leadership. Her apprehension extends to Project 2025, a conservative policy blueprint designed to reshape the federal government in ways she views as radical and authoritarian. She highlights contradictions in Republican leaders' claims of ignorance about the initiative, noting that key figures are mentioned extensively in its framework despite their denial. By calling attention to the project's goals, such as mass firings of federal employees, consolidation of executive power, and the dismantling of essential protections. Crockett frames it as a serious threat to democracy. She argues that many Americans remain unaware of the project's implications and warns that they will only recognize its dangers when they start experiencing its effects firsthand, such as reduced healthcare access, the weakening of public institutions, and economic instability. Through her critique, she underscores the urgency of educating the public and mobilizing resistance to what she perceives as an existential threat to democratic governance.
A country is rough.
Yeah.
Putting a country together like this country, where you have said to everyone, we want to hear what everyone has to say. We've lost sight of the fact that part of the greatness of the U.S. is the rough and tumble. Mm-hmm. You know, you and I have to figure out a way to be here together.
Yeah.
Regardless of what I look like, what I think, you have to live with me like I got to live with you. Like, we have to keep reminding people when we're talking about making sure women know what's going on. It's not because women don't. It's because we need the men to recognize that the women are on top of their stuff. We're trying to help y'all.
Can I say one thing?
You can say many.
Before the break, we were talking about how college kids have to vote and all that stuff. Young people have to understand something. If this 2025 goes into operation, your mother, your grandma, your father, your older people in your family, they will not maybe be getting Medicare, Social Security. Everything's going to get cut back. That means it's on you.
Yeah.
That's on you. So you have to remember these things. When you're a young person, life may be your oyster right now, but it's not going to last.
Well, yeah, because you're heading in our direction. And you want to be, because the alternative is not the best.
Right.
So you want to be alive, but you have to also recognize we're all in it together, regardless of race, creed, color, gender, whatever. We are all taking care of each other for each other.
Whoopi Goldberg, known for her candid takes, pressed Crockett on whether Democrats have done enough to counteract Trump's aggressive policy moves and clear messaging strategy. Crockett acknowledged the struggle, admitting that Democrats have failed to craft a compelling, unified narrative that resonates with the public. She argued that while Republicans move swiftly and decisively, often through bold executive actions and media dominance, Democrats have been slower to rally around a singular, effective message. This lack of cohesion, she suggested, has left the party struggling to push back against misinformation and policy shifts that could have long-term consequences for American democracy. As the discussion deepened, Crockett issued a stark warning to the public, emphasizing that many Americans will not grasp the full impact of current Republican policies until they start facing real, tangible hardships. She pointed to potential hospital closures, cuts to Social Security, and deteriorating public services as inevitable outcomes of continued Republican leadership, arguing that by the time people realize what's happening, it may be too late to reverse course. Goldberg, while agreeing on the stakes, challenged Crockett on whether Democrats have the urgency and strategy needed to prevent these outcomes. Crockett doubled down, insisting that education and outreach must be prioritized to ensure voters understand the direct consequences of political inaction. Their exchange underscored the tension within the Democratic Party, balancing the need for a stronger offensive strategy while trying to convey the dangers of policies that many voters may not recognize until they feel the impact in their daily lives.
Not necessarily because of the subject matter, but more so because basically they said, no, this was signed into law, and in a 9-0 decision, they would not allow him to unilaterally overturn it. So we will see how well they hold up, but we know that this administration keeps threatening judges. If a judge hands down a decision that they don't like, they talk about impeaching that judge and getting rid of that judge, and they won't be able to get rid of these judges because the standard is too high. But he may end up telling some of those Supreme Court justices that are his, it's time for you to go. And they potentially will leave because he did that last time.
Well, I want to ask you about Democrats. You're obviously leading next generation voice in the Democratic Party. And while Trump is moving at this breakneck pace, it feels like signing all these EOs, doing these long-ranging press conferences in the Oval Office, Democrats seem to not be getting their footing on what the message and strategy is to push back. We think of the leaders chanting, "We will win," outside of Treasury, which was widely panned. You've talked about Democrats needing a branding overhaul. Are you satisfied with the approach so far, and what do they need need to do to kind of get their mojo back?
You know what? I think that just like the rest of the world, we've got a bit of whiplash because for some people, even those that voted for him, they said, well, we've been here before and we didn't fall apart the last time he was here, so we won't fall apart this time. And so I think that while we had the playbook right there for us, Project 2025, I still think that even some Democrats were like, oh, well, he's just going to do what he did last time. And he's not. World leaders are recognizing that he's not the same.
What are your thoughts on this critical issue? Do you believe the Democratic Party needs a stronger strategy to counteract Trump's aggressive policies? Or do you think the public will only realize the consequences when it's too late? We'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below. Thank you for watching and engaging with us. Your voice matters in these important discussions. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to stay informed on key political debates, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more insightful content.